Right, so Gurman has ruined our dreams and has given us bad news because he says the 12-inch MacBook is no longer on Apple's near-term roadmap, which means we're likely never gonna get it. And so yeah, let's delve into this. So Gurman recently gave us a big report regarding what to expect with 2023 and Apple, and I'll be honest guys, this year's gonna be pretty mid, and that's purely because there is a recession, so of course Apple's being more cautious with what products they release. And so because Apple's more cautious, they are cancelling some products that were initially in the works. We first heard about the iPhone SE being cancelled, and while now Gurman tells us the 12-inch MacBook is unlikely to release. So yeah, previously Gurman told us the 12-inch MacBook revival should launch at the end of this year or early next year, but now Gurman tells us this product's no longer on the near-term roadmap and it's unlikely to release. Now, unlike the iPhone SE reports, Gurman's much more vague and does not explicitly say it's been cancelled, and so there is a possibility in the future plans are resurrected, but for the time being guys, don't expect a 12-inch MacBook. Now this really sucks because, as everyone has said, the 12-inch MacBook with Apple Silicon makes so much sense. The whole problem the initial 12-inch MacBook faced was the fact the chip was underpowered and there was overheating issues, and while we know that Apple Silicon works amazingly well with fanless machines, we saw that with the M1 and the M2 MacBook Air, so of course, taking that chip and putting it in the 12-inch MacBook would be perfect. And a 12-inch MacBook with the M1 or M2 chip inside basically could make this the perfect entry-level MacBook, and it could be $799 or $899 and be really popular among students and those who do basic stuff with their MacBooks. However, at the same time, during a period like this, I can see why they think they're better without it, because let's be honest guys, Apple's base entry-level products have either been too expensive or have too many compromises, and so I'm sure that one way or another Apple is going to screw up this 12-inch MacBook and either give it a super high price or give it too many compromises. Also remember, the M1 MacBook Air has become pretty cheap. It's now often found for $700 or less, and I don't think a 12-inch MacBook could beat that. Also remember, there is a negative connotation around 12-inch MacBooks. The one that launched in 2015 was a real mess. Yes, the tech community loves it, but as a product it was a failure because the butterfly keyboard sucked, the performance sucked, the price was too high, and so I can understand if Apple has no plans and does not want to release a new 12-inch MacBook. And especially when the MacBook Air branding is so powerful, having that as the base MacBook and not having a 12-inch MacBook in the range, yes, I do get Apple's perspective. But I'll be honest guys, purely because the 12-inch design was so perfect, it would still be nice if Apple could revive it, and hopefully in the future Apple can change their minds and give us this form factor back. Anyways, let's delve into your questions. So Daraj Play says, I think Apple would call the 12-inch MacBook the 12-inch MacBook Air. Now I can see where you're coming from because the 12-inch MacBook was a thin and light device, so the Air name makes sense, but because this should be the base MacBook, just calling this MacBook with no suffix would make sense, similar to what Apple does with the iPads. Since the specs for the price are pretty good, this will become the default MacBook, and so no suffix is needed. Also, we are going to get a 15-inch MacBook Air, so having three sizes of the MacBook Air lineup would be too convoluted, so yeah, this should still just be the MacBook. So James says, I still believe the 12-inch MacBook will be the rumoured white bezel / white keyboard colourful MacBook we saw a few months ago. I think that's likely to replace the M1 MacBook Air in the lineup. So actually yes, I do agree with this because there were so many prominent leaks regarding white bezels and a colourful design coming to the MacBook Air, but that did not pan out. And so giving it to a cheaper MacBook, like the 12-inch MacBook Revival, would make sense, and it would put off some consumers because I'm sure some will hate the white bezels, and that's good news for Apple because ultimately they want to upsell consumers, and so yeah, this machine being colourful with white bezels could upsell consumers to higher end MacBooks. But for the target demographic, which are students, I think the colourful design and the white bezels is going to be very attractive, and essentially it should be a modern version of the iBook. So MacBook Pro 16-inch says they should get rid of the $1299 MacBook Pro and replace it with the 12-inch MacBook. that MacBook makes no sense. They already have the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pro anyways. Yes, I completely agree with this. Even when the 13-inch MacBook Pro was revealed, I said it was a completely useless product. Why would you get this over the cheaper MacBook Air that of course has MagSafe, has a new design, has the better webcam? It's basically better in every aspect. And so yeah, this is completely useless. I'm assuming Apple's either going to replace this with the 15-inch MacBook Air in the works, or of course, they kill this off and make way for the 12-inch. But yes, you're right in that we already have a 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pro, so having a third size is completely useless. So at Goob Filmcast 4239 says, I think Apple's actually beating their Mac sale projections and also anticipates even better sales numbers when compared with Windows PCs. Windows machines will, of course, outsell Macs in overall units, but Apple has been gaining market share against their Windows competition each year since 2020. While Apple dominates phones, tablets, wearables, there is still plenty of room left for macOS to snatch tons of market share from x86/Windows. Now yes, I completely agree with this. Apple has been on a winning streak with the Apple Silicon Macs, and it's definitely going to continue being the case. However, the best way Apple can capture most of the market, in my opinion, is of course to launch cheaper Macs. Specifically a sub $1,000 MacBook. Now of course I know that Apple sells a $1,000 MacBook Air, but what I'm imagining is a $700 or $800 MacBook that yes has some compromises, but ultimately gives you that performance of the M1 chip at a much lower price. So regarding the potential launch of a 12-inch MacBook, iReap says hopefully never get an iPad for that. Now that's a somewhat fair statement I guess, but do remember iPads and Macs serve completely different purposes, and so I think there is a market for a Mac that's well under $1,000 that has the flexibility of macOS and can do a lot more for some people. For example, Logic Pro, Final Cut Pro, these are big apps for the Mac, and so of course an iPad can't do that. Also those who code would prefer a Mac, and so yes, I think there is a market for this, and it won't eat into iPad market share in my opinion because again, much like there's a market for the Mac, there's a market for the iPads. For students and artists who need a stylus, the iPad only has that. For those wanting a touchscreen, the iPad again only has that. And you also get more versatility with the form factor of the iPad. Anyways, that's about it guys, but tell me your thoughts regarding this in the comments. Anyways, let's delve into your comments. Anyways, thank you for watching guys. Make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumours. Check out the vehicle above on details regarding Apple's new HomePods. And on that note, see ya peeps.